So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. We're back in doing one in Ireland again, and while I do have a pint glass this time, it's very much full of water.
I'm drinking tea. If anyone wants to drink in there.
Paddy's drinking tea is right, yeah. But no, what a fantastic weekend last weekend was. Came away with a win, and we're here to preview the game against the Geordies at the weekend, which we hope. And I don't think any of us should be shying away from the fact that we should be going there. We've got all the confidence in the world to go there and potentially come away from Villa Park with a win as well. So we're on the crest of a wave. So why not make it? Why not make it count? But Paddy, just before we get into that, I want to start off and I want to mention something. I did a podcast for a guy today, just like a wonderful gentleman. His name is Chad Williams. He does the Villa Forever podcast, and Chad has a muscle wasting illness, and he's done the podcast as a way of getting the word out about his illness. And we were supposed to sit there, we were supposed to talk for about 20 minutes, and I just got so enthralled with him, and we had a great chat. It was nearly 50 minutes long. It turns out his dad learned how to swim in the River Shannon, which is the river that goes through Limerick City, where I'm from. And we just had such a great kind of great conversation. That's where Paddy goes for his walk in the evening. So it was just a really lovely chat. And if anybody here is looking for some content, Chad's podcast, Villa Forever podcast, he's interviewed Global Greg Evans and a couple more people on there, and yours truly today. So I don't know when our podcast is out, but it would be great if you guys could check that out as well. As I say, a really, really inspiring young man. And it was a really, really nice chat to have. So I just wanted to start off with that today because I found it a fantastic hour or so I spent with Chad.
I look forward to that because I've seen a little bit of his stuff and I've been following him on Twitter. So if you have a look out for him and give him a follow.
Exactly.
Really nice guy.
Exactly. And also, let's get into it while we're doing the shout out. Mike Warmbold says, Baby Collins was born Friday morning, Irish name to go with his strong German heritage, discharged from the hospital partway through the first half, but stayed to watch the end. Excellent, because I actually, would you believe it was Tuesday or Wednesday, I woke up and I went, someone on the podcast was going through labour, weren't they? Their missus going through labour during it. And I remembered it was you, Mike. So that's great. An absolutely fantastic news there. And Collins is a lovely name. Collins is a nice name for sure.
We have a virgin in the room as well.
Liam Richards, good to see you. Great to have you on board, Liam. I hope you enjoy it. So Paddy, Newcastle. It's really funny because when I was doing the podcast earlier on with Chad, I think the overarching feeling was that neither of these two teams are going to fear each other, and but both teams play in two different ways. But the funny thing is here, I don't expect this to be a 3-3 shootout because Emery doesn't do it. And I think for that very reason, I think that we've got every single chance to come away with a win at the weekend.
This is the strangest of fixtures, right? I happened to listen to a podcast today where Newcastle fans were giving out about the fact that we were allowed to get into sixth place. And then I asked myself, who allowed you to do what you did last year?
That's what I was going to say. Did it not 12 months ago?
They're so deluded, it's incredible. And for some reason, they have a hatred of us. I know the old sob on the toy or wherever, get over yourselves, lads. Like, we don't hate you. I actually love Geordie fans. I get great crack out of them.
16 years ago now, like the sob on the toy. 2007, wasn't it?
Damien Duff. Can't remember. A long time ago. But look, it's not like a grudge match or anything like that. These are two teams, and I think if someone goes out and beats the other none of us are going to be too upset unless they were robbed by a referee or something, or a stupid VAR mistake, because I envisage that this has all the hallmarks of being the best game this weekend. Best game in the Sky Sports sense, where we are going to see an out and out game of chess between two really good coaches. And yes, I am including the Newcastle manager as a really good coach. He's a fantastic coach. We've seen what he's done over the last few years, last 18 months, whatever it is. He's a smashing coach and a smashing guy, and I'm looking forward to it. It's a pity it wasn't that weekend you could get over, Neil, because we might have been a bit less sober if we'd have done our after match after a 12:30 kickoff.
Yeah. That would have been something. There might have been something in that as well. But just talking about Eddie Howe there, you mentioned that he is a good coach. One of the big things that I find about Eddie Howe, and look, as you say, I've absolutely no problem coming on and saying that I was wrong in certain situations. I remember when Eddie Howe didn't take the Celtic job, and he and look, I know that the Celtic job, he's got on. He got the Newcastle job, but a good way back into the Premier League has traditionally been to take the Celtic job previously.
Yeah.
Like Brendan Rodgers, Gordon Strachan got back into the Premier League, so on and so forth. And when he didn't take it, I thought that was a misstep on his part. And then I thought it was very much a misstep when time went on and he was so long out of a job. I thought that he could become the next forgotten man. That, along with the fact that he was English as well. He's a British manager. He's that usually is what tends to happen, and you have to prove yourself all over again. And then the stars aligned for him at Newcastle United, because Newcastle tried for a couple of managers. If you're to believe what you read, they tried for Unai Emery. It didn't happen. And then Eddie Howe ended up in the gig. And the stars have aligned for him since. And he's like, he was able to coach at Bournemouth because he saved Bournemouth from extinction back in the day, with getting them through the leagues as quickly as he did. So, when you say that he is a good coach, he absolutely is. And it's funny that recency bias, specifically at the time when we were talking about him getting the Newcastle job, because he was out of sight, out of mind. I've no problem saying that I suffered from that recency bias, or I suppose that out of sight, out of mind bias at the time. But he's really kind of shown what he can do. And his blueprint is very simple. It's English football. It's attacking fullbacks. It's strong in the middle of midfield, and it's try and play two lads up front that can play off each other. That's the way it goes. He's a throwback at times, and I've enjoyed watching Newcastle.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because in all our drunken foolishness on Saturday, we didn't actually go into a great deal about tactics or anything like that. But it was the first time that another manager who's grossly underrated in my opinion as well, managed to stop our central midfielders, did a great job. It was kind of a middle press, if you'd even call it that, allowed us to have the ball at the back, and we were bereft of ideas. So it'll be interesting to see what Eddie Howe has in store for us this weekend. Does he continue to play his game and inflict it on us, or does he try and nullify our game? It's literally going to be a game of chess, and it's one I'm going to be sitting down immediately after the team sheet tantrum with a big bucket of popcorn waiting on, because this, to me, is the game of the weekend. I think if you look at the table, and I haven't even looked at the matches, but I don't care if City are playing Arsenal. This is the game of the weekend. This is going to be the tactical battle of the weekend, and I can't wait for it.
John Steele, I laughed at this. I watched the Newcastle pod earlier. They were saying that Mings is the worst defender in the league. I almost ruptured an eye from the eye rolling. That one got me. That one got me for sure. And Dinny's on the pod. Dinny's the Lord Mayor Nina is here. Dennis O'Brien. Well, boys, myself and Noel Collett have a few carlings for you. And so you're welcome to all the carling you can drink, because, as I say, it's I don't want to see a pint of carling again until the next time I'm within a mile of Villa Park, because it's certainly not my tipple. As well. A couple of things there before we get into it as well, Paddy. AVFC Stato, thank you so much for some statistics here. If you guys haven't seen the Stato show on the Villa View, go and check it out. I'm sure you've seen it, because you'd be a fool not to have seen it. And also, Stato does watch-alongs during all the games as well. So if you're not at the game, or if you want to do a watch-along, or if you want to watch any watch-alongs, Stato is the man to do it. So get on his channel. Stato says here, Aston Villa have scored at least once in all 17 of their Premier League games under Unai Emery. 30 goals overall. That's a nice number, right? I don't
Nearly
know
2 a game.
yeah, exactly. Only 2 managers have seen the side score in each of their first 18 matches in the spell in charge in this competition. Mike Walker of Norwich in 1992. He had Sutton and who was up front? Was it? Damn it! I had it. It's gone out of my mind. Mark Robbins. Was it? No.
Can't remember.
Answers on a postcard as to who was up front with Sutton in 1992 there, everybody. And Carlo Ancelotti with Chelsea in 2000.
Your man saying the scored the goal against Bayern Munich.
I can't remember. Well, Chris Sutton was
Efnikoku, one of the lads says.
Could have been Efnikoku. Yeah, it could have been Efnikoku. This isn't a Norwich podcast yet, anyway.
Jeremy Goss.
Jeremy Goss is the person I was trying to think of. Yeah, Jeremy Goss. Bertrand Traore has scored in his last 2 Premier League games, with both of these appearances coming as a substitute. I wonder, will his appearance come as a substitute at the weekend, though? That's the big question. I suppose really it all depends on if Boubacar Kamara is fit or not. I think that's going to dictate, because I think if Boubacar Kamara is fit, I think we could see Super John McGinn up top, because it's been coming, and he finished the game up top against Forest during the week. So that's
the team news, Neil. You want the early team news?
No. Yes. I thought you said, did I hear the early team news?
All right. Well, don't shoot the messenger, but we won't have Boubacar Kamara on Saturday.
I wouldn't.
We may have him the following week. We won't have Leon Bailey for at least 3 weeks. Matty Cash won't be available for at least another week. And Coutinho is about 2 weeks away.
Well, there we go.
I'm looking forward to the graphic now tomorrow, telling you that they're all back.
Exactly. Yeah. They've given everybody else small bits of information to try and weed out who the leak is. That's what they've done. So, Aston Villa's Ashley Young has never lost a.
Just for clarity, I just read that off a website.
You just read exactly. Aston Villa's Ashley Young has never lost a Premier League home game against Newcastle, 1-7, drawn 1, and Aston Villa are unbeaten at home in the Premier League against Newcastle since September 2014. So there are some really nice statistics. I'll be honest with you, I would not have thought we were that we matched up that well statistically with Newcastle at all.
We had a lot of barren years where we didn't play them when they went down, and then we went down. You know. We played them in the championship as well, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We actually won them the championship by Jack scoring against Brighton. Yeah. They forget, don't they, when they're slagging us off.
Yeah. Look, you know me, Paddy, and anybody who's listened to the podcast for any concerted period of time, I don't get into the fake rivalry stuff. We are not rivals with Newcastle. There's no need for me to despise or to hate Newcastle fans. Yes, they can talk nonsense all they want, and we have certain fans, and there's a certain Twitter account that does rile up the Newcastle fans, and that's not indicative of what Aston Villa fans are in general. But look, as I say, I'm not there for that. I wasn't there for it when it was a Leeds thing either, when Leeds hated us. I'm just here for Aston Villa winning. And I suppose, do you know what? Maybe we need to get more used to it as well. If we start winning more and more, and if we start to continue to propel ourselves up the league. And I'm sure there's been lots of podcasts for lots of teams. Maybe West Ham have been spoken about this. Leicester have spoken about this in the past. The winning breeds contempt from teams below you. I don't want to put the cart before the horse here and say that this is going to be a perennial thing, because we all, as Villa fans, know that you know, you're only one loss away from spiraling as an Aston Villa team. But I'm not here for the fake rivalries, as I say, with the likes of Newcastle or with anybody, to be honest with you. Our rivalries with Birmingham. As the people know, I don't even really believe that the rivalry is with Wolves. So take that one to the bank if you want. But anyway.
Definitely not Wolves. Baggies maybe, but definitely not Wolves. Baggies closer than Blues are.
That's it.
Geographically. So
exactly.
anyway, there you go.
We won't get into it. We'll never get off the podcast if we get into what is and what isn't a rivalry or what is and what isn't a derby. From that point of view, I suppose there is a difference though when we're talking about there's a difference between a derby and a rivalry. So I suppose there is that indeed. Paddy, I want to ask you a question, I suppose, about the weekend and about the weekend just gone and how we played. And you mentioned about Steve Cooper and how he nullified our middle of midfield. Obviously, that's been a massive plus point area for Newcastle, and they've been very good. They've been very adept at breaking through Kieran Trippier on out wide, but they've been very adept at winning the ball back in the middle of midfield with the likes of Bruno and obviously the resurgent Joe Linton in there. Do you think? I hate using this phrase, but do you think maybe even though we won 2-0 last Saturday, there could be some sort of blueprint moments in there for Eddie Howe?
I'd have to think with the run he's had that he would trust his players and go with the same system. I do believe they will give us a torrid time if he goes with what he did last week with Joe Linton, Isaac, and when Murphy come off at half time. Whoever that is on the other side, they will press us higher than what Nottingham Forest did. And it was funny watching the match back because, as you know, I watched the game from behind the goal, and sometimes you miss these things. And you know, you look at Tyrone Mings beating a couple of players, but he didn't actually beat them because they were non-committal. You know, he's just driving out with the ball. So to watch it back was actually an eye opener. Sometimes that happens in a game. Sometimes you just see everything. But it was actually an eye opener to watch it back. But this is going to be a completely different ball game. It's going to be, I would say, a battle of the tacticians. And like we could very easily be sitting here on Saturday with a clean sheet and still have the first game that we haven't scored a goal under Unai Emery. I'd put money on it. I like at the moment everything points to a 0-0 draw. So it'll.
See, I think it's going to be a draw. My heart says a draw as well, but I think there'll be goals. I think it'll be a 1-1 draw because, and I think Ollie Watkins is going to continue scoring. And the reason I think he's going to continue scoring is because, there was just something about that celebration. It was a 92nd minute goal in a game we had won. We were never going to lose for a finish. And he goes nuts like he was after scoring a goal last minute in the Cup Winners' Cup final or something like that, you know? He goes nuts, takes off the shirt.
In his defence, now there's words I haven't said about Ollie Watkins, but in his defence, it was the 94th minute. And if you're going to whip your top off and take a fine for a yellow card, that's the time to do it because you're not going to get a second yellow unless you do absolutely something mad in the space of 10 seconds. So, yeah, look, it was his opportunity to really have a celebration that we all talk about. Like I can't get over why they all continue with this knee slide. I'd say it just annoys the grounds, man. That's probably why they do it. But I just thought it was a really good celebration, and about time we saw something different.
I've just been reliably informed that my initial hunch of Mark Robbins was correct, and he was the top goal scorer for Norwich City in that season, 92-93, with 15 goals. So the old Bonds is still working. It's still working after last weekend. I didn't kill every brain cell that I had. But no, I suppose what I meant with regards to the Ollie Watkins thing was that, you know, he's probably been in these contract negotiations for a couple of weeks now. It came out during the week that 100k deal on the table for him. Michael Huggins thought he was looking in the mirror when he took his top off. I know, just like me, whenever Alex Moreno's face flashes up on the screen, he looks exactly like me, Mike. You know, he looks exactly like me. But Ollie Watkins is now in the running for like a 6 figures a week sum. Like, what was it? 4 years ago, 5 years ago, he was playing for 6 years ago, maybe he's playing for Exeter. You know, like these things are huge. And if he continues to score goals, he can continue to justify that contract. He can continue to justify that money and set not only his family, but his kids up for life, you know. And I think there's a certain aspect of, all right, and I know every single footballer wants to earn as much money as they possibly can. And I know every single footballer wants to do X, Y, and Z. But I think for a guy who's come up through the leagues, who stayed with Exeter when he could have gotten a move away because he had loyalty to Exeter, then stayed with Brentford for another year because he wanted to learn playing up top. He wanted to move from a winger to playing up top. and he's now with Aston Villa, broken onto the English team, had a tough start to the season. I think a lot. I think goals mean an awful lot to him, and I also think that at 27 years of age, he's in his prime, and he's going to want to make hay while the sun shines financially as well. So fair play to him, and that's my whole reasoning for thinking that he's going to score again at the weekend.
I absolutely wouldn't be surprised to see an announcement of him signing a new contract before the end of the season.
I think he will. Yeah, I think that will definitely be signed. Yeah, and also look, their team sniffing. There's rumors their team sniffing around him. There's rumors that Arsenal have loved him for the last 2 years. So Arsenal obviously, they have.
Kind of helps that he's an Arsenal fan.
What was that?
Kind of helps that he's an Arsenal fan, that they love him.
This is it. Yeah, this is it. But Gabriel Jesus was out of the team. Eddie Nketiah came in. Will Nketiah ever be a main striker? I think he's all the attributes to do it, but I think that he'd love to stay at Arsenal. Will Arsenal bring back Balogun? Will they go and bring in somebody else? I think they will look to kick on up top, specifically if they win the league. I wouldn't rule out Dusan Vlahovic playing up front for Arsenal next year. I think he'd absolutely suit them down to the ground. But anyway, this isn't an Arsenal podcast. This isn't for the love of John Jensen podcast here, or for the love of Stefan Schwartz podcast. I had to dig into the file of facts in the back of it. I was going back into the file of facts there to think of obscure names that played with Arsenal. But it's as I say, I think Ollie Watkins is. I think he's got a lot riding on the end of this year. And look, I know people say that Villa don't need to sign him to a new contract. He's got a couple more years left, but Villa have been very good at tying players down to loyalty contracts. They've done it with Douglas Luiz. They've done it with Emi Martinez. They've done it with Tyrone Mings. They've done it with Matty Cash. They've done it with John McGinn. They do it. They pay people early.
It doesn't have to be a huge contract extension. Extend it by a year and up his wages. Just stops his head being turned. That's how it works.
And that's exactly. That's the loyalty aspect to it. Maybe lump a signing on fee to him as well. Give it to him up front. And there's a lot of these, from following American sports or like American football and stuff like that. You see that those incentives, and sometimes players will go, "Oh, I only want the 1 year deal, but I want most of the money up front, and I want it guaranteed." And everybody has a different trigger point with what they want. Regards to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory. If anybody's ever studied business and how to keep people happy, I'm sure that goes on in the corridors of B6 or Philip or Bodymore, should I say. Matthew Hanlon, thank you so much again, Matthew. Points for podcasters. We'll throw money at you and come back and watch the show later. Two good gaffers this weekend. Forgot Newcastle tried for Emery first. Shrewd tactics and both in form. Will be a good watch. Absolutely, I agree for sure. Paddy, I had a question. You're an Arsenal fan. Brilliant. I had a question there on Sugar. Who was it? Oh, Buendia. I had a question on Buendia, Paddy. I've seen a couple of things and I've heard a couple of things. Well, more so seen a couple of things recently on Twitter that people are kind of on the whole Buendia isn't playing great lately kind of band again. I want your thoughts. I've got a few thoughts on it because it's not something that I really kind of considered until I'd started reading more on it.
My thought on it is that not just our fan base, every fan base can't just relax and enjoy it. They have to have a scapegoat. They have to have one go-to person at any given time. And he just seems to be that this week. You can't, the guy is going to blow hot and cold. We've had players in there that blew cold, hot, cold. He's hot and cold. You know what you're going to get with him. You will get hard work. You'll get endeavour. You'll get shithousery. You'll get him going fucking mad and waving his hands, and you'll get him playing well, and you'll get him do special things. I think all this came out of a stat of his forward passes not connecting or something. I vaguely remember reading this on the plane coming home. And all of a sudden, everybody was lumping in on him, and I just thought that was really strange. Is he still our most expensive player?
Yes,
he is. Well, he is for now, but probably won't be in the summer. But I really like him. I always have done. We won't always get his magic, his little bit of magic, his Steven Gerrard bit of magic. but you'll get it more often than you will from Leon Bailey, and you'll see him on the pitch more often than you will Philip Coutinho. So why we don't embrace these guys a little bit more is beyond me. But that's just my opinion on him. I would have him in the team. I'd have him in the team every week because he just has that little, and it might be early in the move. It might be late in the move. He might get on the end of a header, but he can get involved in goal scoring actions. So be that the slow build out from the back, be that dropping into midfield to pick up the ball. I'm absolutely fine with him in there.
Yeah, so I agree. I don't think Emi Buendia is anywhere near I think he's actually one of the least of our worries, and I tell you why. Yes, he gives the ball away. I know there was a statistic about him not having any assists up until not last weekend, the weekend before. I think that was his first assist. I know I've read stuff like that somewhere along the line he's been the player who's given the ball away the most in the final third. But the guy suits our system, and he's given that freedom to try that Hollywood pass or to try that backdoor pass. But he's also given the freedom to create all the space for all the rest of the players around the field. So if he's dragging people around, one or two players, and he can't get his pass away to somebody, I'm kind of okay because it's not costing us. It's not costing us, and he puts, as you said, puts in a shift in his defensive duties, puts in a shift in front of that midfield, and he does a thankless job. He kind of reminds me, he's kind of been asked to do the same job, and what I mean by this is to try and be all things to everybody, like John McGinn was asked to do in the latter half of Dean Smith's tenure and the start of Stephen Gerrard's tenure. And there's no kind of specialization for Buendia at the moment. He's not able to concentrate on just stay out on the left-hand side, concentrate out there. He's really the guy who's running around making space. And you can see it there. Yes, and he was rightly pulled on Saturday.
And it's okay to say, if someone's not playing well in a game or you feel that the game is passing them by, take him off. Doesn't make him a scapegoat. We just need
100%.
of all the times we need to be getting behind, lads, it's now. Look at me. I'm even praising Ollie Watkins every week.
Yeah, Paddy took a bump to the head, I think. But I like that. But with
Jersey at the weekend.
I nearly did. Yeah, we were inside the club shop. I go, so I get you, and but then we weren't sure if he was still in around. I was going to get him to go up to the fence and try and get him to sign it for Paddy. But no, but on the Buendia thing, I think. Look, as I said, there will be games where he'll be frustrating, but I think the worth to the structure that he brings within the team is fantastic. And you look at Talking Tactics, you look at any of those guys, and you see them in games. You see them break down the games afterwards. They'll say that Buendia, makes these runs, creates these open spaces. And he may not be the man that's getting on the ball a lot or making that killer pass, but his movement off the ball is really good. And look, as I say, he's as frustrated as anybody that he isn't getting the assists, but he's come up with some good goals for us this season, and he could be a likely candidate to sneak in the back post on Saturday.
Didn't he play the first 7 or 8 games of Emery's before he was dropped? Would that be correct?
I think he played something like 11 games in a row, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was so. You can be the way I read into that from a coach's point of view is that guy is doing wonders on the training pitch, and he has done mesmeric things on the pitch too, albeit they're a little bit further away from the goal than we'd like it to be, and that's fine. He's doing the job that he's been told to do by Emery, or he wouldn't be in the team. So there you go. Do I think he'll be an integral part next year? Maybe not, depending on who we bring in. But he's there now, and we're in, albeit slightly unnatural position, but we're there on merit. Nobody would have believed, we would have laughed when Emery took over if we said, come back to me in April and I'll tell you that we'll be in 6th. And he went, nah, we may not be in 6th by the time we play Brighton at the end of the year. But we've been on a brilliant run and we deserve to get behind the players. The players deserve us to get behind them.
And like, if you did say we were in sixth, I would say, who did we buy? I certainly wouldn't say that on the 13th of April we'd be talking about, the retreads that he's done and this team that's and this group of players, bar Moreno, that's been at the team for almost 24 months now. But Gaz Oaks makes a great point, and this is something I was saving for, but spoiler alert for the team sheet tantrum. Gaz says he thinks Dundonker will come in on Saturday and McGinn will go back wide. I think potentially this will happen as well, because I think if they're going to try and stifle our midfield, we might as well stifle theirs. And if Dundonker plays alongside Douglas Luiz in there, and we have the Ramsey McGinn connection out wide, Buendia goes up top alongside Watkins, and we still have that maverick to come off the bench like a Bertrand Traore. Does he trust Bertie to start? We'll know, but I think this is very, very plausible that Dundonker will come in on Saturday and McGinn will go back.
Plus, he gave him 15 minutes plus injury time at the weekend to see if he the speed. So that is usually a good indication of what's going through his head.
Exactly, I think so too. Any other further kind of things that you want to chat about with this one, Paddy? Because as I say, everyone's excited about this, but it's a 12:30 kickoff, and as I say, there's been a lot of talk about Unai Emery over the last 2 weeks, and about the changes that he's made, and about maybe even the lack of changes that he's made from the point of view of he's just come in and structured a team that was already there. So I'm finding these previews a bit more and more difficult to do, because we know the way he's going to set up, and it while it's not predictable in the way that we go out and play, we know he's going to set up where Steven Gerrard was. You didn't know what front three or front four there was going to be at any given time. But anything else you can think of that you want to talk about from either side, either Newcastle or Aston Villa?
Not so much about the game. I think we've covered off a lot of it, but there's a lot going on off the pitch. So a quick roundup. We'll say that the stadium has been selected for the European Championships in 2028. Obviously, the club have announced a North American tour, and that we've got the Aston Villa women playing in an FA Cup semi-final on Sunday.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we've a lot going on this week. We've a lot going on this year, and there's exciting times ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously Villa have announced a North American tour, and I forgot to announce something as well that I wanted to mention midway through the podcast, but now that we've brought it on here, I do have a nice segue. So obviously Villa have announced the North American tour with 3 games coming, 1 in Philadelphia, 1 in Orlando, 1 in DC. And I am delighted to say that we, as a podcast, have partnered with a Birmingham fan called Andrew Hill, who owns a company called Sports. A Villa fan, a Birmingham native Villa fan, should I say? God, he's going to kill me for that. Sports Travel Tours. They're based out of both Dallas, Texas, and they're based in the West Midlands as well. And they've put together packages for Villa in America. I'm going to link I'm going to pop this up on Twitter afterwards. I'm going to drop the link into the notes as well after the podcast. But the packages are up there. And what the guys in Sports Travel Tours are asking you to do is, at the moment, the prices are not up there. They're waiting on prices to come back from hotels and so on and so forth. Obviously, this has only been announced over the last couple of days. But you can go on the website and you can register your interest, and there's discounts for the first few people who register their discounts. So I will actually pop this. Oh, what have I done there? I'm going to pop this link into the comments there for anybody who may be interested. Paddy, will you fill there, because I can't seem to click this link. So Paddy, which one of the games do you think would be would tickle your fancy? Obviously, we've got that game in Philadelphia, then we'll go all the way down to Orlando, back up to DC. But as you can see, the packages there from Sports Travel Tours, who are at all protected. If you don't know what that means, it means that your booking and your money and stuff like that is fully insured as well. What game, if you were to pick, Paddy, what game would or what city would tickle your fancy? I've
actually completely forgotten who we're playing in each city. Not that it matters. It's Villa in a North American tour. We
Newcastle and Philly, I think.
Newcastle and Philly. Well, Philly is the one that tickles my fancy. It's a place I've never been. I haven't been to DC either, but I've no interest in going and watching Villa melt in the heat in Orlando and the stadium's in the middle of nowhere and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, if I have to pick one and sports travel tours, you know, just give me a shout. I'll bring all the boys over from Heathrow for you and look after them all the way to Philly.
Yeah, it'd be great. It's something I'd absolutely love to go. I've just dropped the link in there as well, guys, into the chat. I'll put in the podcast notes as well. Let me see if I can edit on the fly here while we're going. Sports. See, this is if I had a producer. No, this would be fantastic. There, I've popped in the link there into the podcast notes as well, so you guys can come back to it. I can't do it because it's telling me that it needs to be scheduled in the future. Okay. Anyway, back onto other things. But that's the guys there. Give them a look out. You just can fill in the form. They will email you out then with the prices. Prices should be out within the next 24 hours, or 24 or 48 hours. So now is the time to get booking, I suppose, really, while the strike while the iron is hot. So if it is something you guys are interested in, give the guys in Sports Travel Tours a shout. Also, if you're interested in going over to any NFL games and stuff like that, that's how I got to know these guys as well. Previously, was looking to see about booking to go over to see NFL games. And as I say, Andrew is a Villa fan. So he'd only be delighted to see what he could do for everybody.
You left out the most important thing, Neil. Andrew watches and listens to the podcast.
Andrew watches and listens to the podcast. Exactly. Yeah. So look, as I say, so he's of sound body and mind for listening to podcasts. It shows great taste and breeding on his part, also. And in case anybody's wondering what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to figure out how I can take that down off the screen. No, there we go. Excellent stuff. So, yeah, I suppose in synopsis of the game at the weekend, I think it's going to be a really good game. Orlando will be scorching.
I still have nightmares of watching Steve Staunton standing for the national anthem with a hat on to keep the sun off him for as long as he possibly could.
Was it Mexico, Paddy? Was it
Mexico?
Yeah, and they nearly killed Tommy Coyne up top. They put Ireland in '94 played with Tommy Coyne up top against Mexico, and they basically told him to be a one-man high press back in 1994, and they bloody nearly killed him in that heat. So Tommy Coyne, if you're out there, I apologise on behalf of the nation of Ireland for what we put you through that day. And John Aldridge started fighting with assistant referees and everything on the sideline. That was an eventful enough game for. Excellent. So in synopsis, I think at the weekend, guys, I think that while this is going to be a well and eagerly awaited game, and I think it could be a really, really good game, I'm not expecting a 4-4 shootout. See, I say that now because I'm kind of half hoping the karma kind of comes back and says, oh, if he's not expecting it, I'm going to give him something he doesn't expect and try to put egg on my face. But I think it could be a goal either way or even a 1-1 draw is what I'm thinking at the moment. But I do think that it's going to be a nice barometer of where we actually really are, because Newcastle are a form team, we're a form team, and we're meeting each other at the right time for both sets of fans to feel confident. And I like that kind of situation. So bring it on at the weekend and we'll see what happens. All right, so with that, guys, I think we're going to leave you go. We will be back with a team sheet tantrum. It will be at 11:20 Irish time, UK time. 11:20. That's early, but it's fine. It's early, 11:20, and then we'll be back with a post-match podcast afterwards as well. And hopefully we'll be talking about an Aston Villa win. Also, if you guys do come across Chad Williams' podcast, Villa Forever podcast, really enjoyed chatting with him today. I'd really love if you guys could give it a look, subscribe to his podcast, and Chad, if you're watching, I know you might be watching now, but you might watch this back. I really appreciate you asking me to go on the podcast, and I really appreciate you taking the time to interview me, because it was a really, really great conversation. And lastly, as I say, Sports Travel Tours as well. You can check the link out. I'll pop it in the notes after this podcast. But thanks so much, absolutely so much, everybody, for giving us your time this evening. Here's to a win at the weekend. In the meantime, stay safe and stay healthy. And all that's left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.